Hey everyone, this is Sarah with sewingpartsonline.com, and today I'm going to be showing you how to use and install the binder foot. So this is our Snappamatic binder foot. It snaps onto your shank right up here where this bar is, like normal. And then right here in the front, this opening right here is where you're going to put your fabric through. And then on the side, we have these little slots. And the first one is where we put our binding through, and the rest of them are there so you can use a seam ripper or a pin to push the binding through, as well as this slot right here, this little crease. You can push the binding through right there as well. So to install it, all we do is take off the foot we have on, and the funnel is facing you, and you just clip it on like that. Very, very simple. So when we're using our binder foot, it's important to take special notice at what tapes you're using. For this binder foot, your max is a 1/2 inch of single fold. So you can't use any double fold. I tried and it got stuck and it was a big mess. So just use a regular single fold 1/2 inch. So your end binding will be only a 1/4 inch like this. It'll be folded over. You can get them on a roll like this where the edges, don't fray, or you can get them in this, like the packages you see in the binding section, just like this, has the little edges, and when it's on your project, it'll look like that. So here we have our binding tape. I cut it to a point right here so it's easier to put in. Just put it in this little slot right here at the very top. I'm gonna have to maneuver it in. It's kind of hard at first, don't get a little frustrating, but once you get it in a little bit, you can just put your seam ripper in and pull it to the back. And it should come right through. Oh. There we go. And then just pull it about 2 inches past your foot. You can go ahead and install it. And we're ready to start sewing. I have all of mine just hanging out over here because it's important that you feed it correctly or the sides get all lopsided. So we'll just put in the fabric through this little slot. You don't have to shove it back there. When the feed dogs move your binding tape, the tape will grab onto the fabric and move it through too. As long as your needle is grabbing the binding tape, it should be fine. And I noticed sometimes that my binding tape does kind of shift around on me, so I'll just keep an eye on my needle position and move it over as needed. If I see it's starting to go off on me, I'll just move it over a little bit until it's grabbing both the fabric and the binding tape. You can hold your binding tape up at an angle if that's easier for it to get it on your fabric. It just depends how it's feeding on your machine. Once you get the hang of it, you can really speed it up a little bit. And if you do have some sections that didn't catch the binding tape, that's all right. You can just go back, take out a little bit of the stitches and hand tack it down. It's no big deal. You can make the stitches longer or shorter. You can move it over to a zigzag if you want. And let's see what it looks like. Here you can see it's nice and even, perfect stitch, exactly what we want. And over here, it went over to a zigzag, catching both the binding tape and the fabric. So this time I'm going to use some twill tape and some knit fabric. So you can use this foot with knit fabric. A little tip though, if your edges are rolling all over the place, starch them down nice and flat first and put in a basting stitch to help keep everything stabilized while it's going through this foot. So same as before, we're just going to slip it in like this and make sure our needle is where we want it. Let me go ahead and, yep, that's catching it. So make sure everything, it's a little harder with knits, especially a light knit like this, but that's okay. Once everything gets started, it works really well. So just trying to make sure that this isn't slipping all over the place. It is a little bit harder with knits, but it still comes out looking really, really good. And this twill tape is a little thicker, so it's a little bit harder to get through, but it still does go through and it still feeds really nicely. Just gonna have to, once again, stabilizing the fabric with some starch is kind of the key to using this foot with knits. And I have my twill tape over here to the side, just because I think it feeds better. And let's take a look at how it turned out. See right there on the edge, right there, you can barely even see the stitches, but it does hold very well and looks very neat on the knit fabric. So this time I'm going to show you how we go around a corner, and this corner also goes straight into a curve. So you'll see with this foot you can go around corners and you can go on curves. So we've got right up to the corner. We're just going to go and sew about 1/4 of an inch from the corner, and we're going to put our needle down and flip it back into the binding. Just like that. So we went from like this, back here, in here to the binding. And then we'll also be going into, you're gonna have to kind of help maneuver it. It's definitely a little bit finicky. And then we're gonna be going straight into a curve. Keep an eye on your binding, making sure it's catching both. And then you can also do a rounded corner. So we're going to do another rounded angle. Just kind of, you want to kind of pull your hand on the back of the fabric like this. Might have to just tweak it just a little bit, and then just keep turning the fabric. So we came up to it, see it came out a little bit, but I can fix that when I go back. And we want to right around the corner, right there, all the way into a curve and around a rounded corner like this. So that was the binder foot. To purchase your binder foot, visit us on sewingpartsonline.com or check out our Facebook at facebook.com/sewingpartsonline.